Welcome everyone at today's Dept Talks live, live from my attic this time because we're all still working from home. Let me get started with a quick introduction. So today we'll be talking about marketplace and international scaling on marketplaces. We have a special guest, but let me start with a quick round of introductions of myself and Dept for the people that don't know, and I'll keep it short, I promise. So I'm Kevin. I'm responsible for the marketplace proposition that we have here in the Netherlands for Dept. In the coming 25 minutes, I hope to be sharing some thoughts together with our guest about how you can best scale and sell internationally on marketplaces, or just locally if you haven't started yet, of course. Before I introduce my guest, let me quickly tell you a little bit about Dept if you don't know our company yet. So Dept is an agency that unites creativity, data, design, and tech all together. Those are the ingredients for any successful digital service or product. This is what sets us apart from the competition, creating all those things and making them come together. We do this for a wide range of our clients, and as you can see from the left to the right on the screen right now, we do this from marketplaces and stores all the way to building brands and growing platforms. And what we try to do is find that sweet spot where humans, brands, and messages come together into one. And we don't just target casual, pretty, or urban commuter. Most of the time, creative ends up on the left side of the spectrum. But what we can do is find that sweet spot in the middle, because we also know, as a one-stop shop agency, what the right message is on the right medium. And before I finish our introduction here, what we try to do is service end to end. So from brands on the left to product propositions on the right. And I do that not just by myself, I do that together with 1,600 thinkers and makers, working from 28 offices in 13 countries, or just like right now, from my home office. Focusing on marketplaces, the marketplaces team within Dept is 130 specialists. We manage about $1 billion media spent, and that's billion with a B. We have 250 brands that we work for from the marketplaces team, and we actually wrote the book. And yes, we know that book could have used some design work from Dept. This was before Dept was united as one. But a lot of the things that we do, we cannot do alone. We do a lot of cool marketplaces stuff, but we do that together with a lot of technology partners. And one of the big benefits as a global agency is that you have global partnerships and really cool partners in that partnership. One of those partners, and you can kind of feel this coming, is here today, and they enable us to help our clients scale and grow to places where they have never been before. And that is ChannelEngine. And I can tell you a lot about ChannelEngine and how the story of ChannelEngine started about 7 years ago, but who better to tell you a little bit about what they do and how they ended up here than the CEO and founder himself. Jorrit, it's my honor to have you in this webinar today.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for inviting me to this webinar. I'm excited to talk about our marketplaces. A bit of background. I've been into e-commerce for more than 17 years as an entrepreneur, set up various e-commerce technology companies, ran our own e-commerce operations for 12 years, with 70 web shops, a lot of inventory, 4 different warehouses. And what we started doing was connecting to different external sales channels, all custom made, one-on-one, and then we wanted our commercial teams to be able to filter margin, exclude products, include products, translate and map data. And there were no good tools back then. So I sold the previous company and started building a software as a service solution, which is now called ChannelEngine. And with ChannelEngine, we enable brands, wholesalers, and retailers to scale globally and connect their internal systems, so ERP, PIM systems, warehouse management systems, and enable them to connect directly to multiple sales channels within Europe, US, Canada, and other regions as well. So we do that to quite a lot of channels, as you see on the screen here. And we've got some very exciting brands on our platform, ranging from nice retail chains doing extremely well to global brands utilizing our solution for marketplaces, as well as direct-to-consumer shops, synchronizing stock, automated pricing, making sure that product content they have in our PIM system is distributed well over all these different sales channels. So it's exciting times, and we're expanding on a continuous basis to different new regions as well. So nice talking here.
Yeah, thanks for that quick intro. And when we were just talking in the virtual green room just before for me, you said that it's crazy business right now, and it's never been this busy. Even though it's Q4 and it's always busy, it's never been as busy as right now, right?
It's insane, yeah. And what we saw happening already was a shift to direct to consumer with a lot of brands, where a few years ago the brands were hesitant to go direct to consumer because of the channel conflict. Now, as soon as COVID hit, there was no offline channel, especially at the beginning. So a lot of these boundaries are just gone, and everybody's accelerating this new way of approaching the e-commerce market.
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing exactly the same on the agency side of things. A lot of clients giving us a call if we can run campaigns before the end of the year, especially for the holiday season coming up. And I think that brings me to managing your expectations for today, because we'll be talking about topics that we think are relevant right now, which include how marketplaces impact e-com, and we're trying to focus here on a seller proposition, not so much the vendor proposition. And we want to share with you what kind of tooling there is available, so you can get started as soon as possible, and what kind of mistakes that I made. I'm not sure if Jorrit made any mistakes, but I'm quite sure he can share some ideas. But what we won't be talking about today is the DSP opportunities that you have on marketplaces to leverage that data that they have, or the logistics side of things. We want to kind of stay away from that and really focus on what you need to get going. And that brings me to the following point. Please interrupt us in the chat at any time if you have questions. This session is meant as a knowledge sharing session, and you can ask any question that you would like, and you can do it either in Dutch or in English if you prefer. And we have a team behind the scenes feeding us those questions when they come in. So please do share. So let's start this session off with some facts. Because a lot of people are always asking, how big are marketplaces in the world? What's happening? How big is e-commerce compared to the entire retail market? So we've prepared some numbers here. To give you an idea, of all the retail sales in the world, about 15% currently is e-commerce. And that 15% of all retail sales globally would translate into 5 trillion with a T dollar business. That's a 5 with 12 following zeros. If you then translate that to what is expected, and this is without the effects of COVID taken into account, we're expecting a growth from 15 to about 22% in 2023 of all retail being e-com. Then translating that again to what is happening on marketplaces, you're talking about almost 60% of all e-commerce business taking place on marketplace. These are numbers from the end of last year, so pre-COVID. So this number has probably shifted a little bit, but to speak to your imagination, in 2023, 3/4 of all e-com will be done through marketplaces. And marketplaces is not just something that we always talk about with Amazon and Bull, and you'll hear those examples a lot today. But marketplaces could be a lot wider. So, for example, what's happening on Google, but we'll get back to that in a second. So one of the things that Jorrit and I saw this interview with you this summer, where you mentioned that you shouldn't just focus on being at the top of Google anymore. I mean, Google used to be the gateway for consumers to find businesses, but there's a lot of other marketplaces which are in themselves search engines. And Google's also seeing this shift going on, where a lot of traffic is coming to the marketplace directly, and they're introducing shopping actions and derivatives from that. How do you see Google moving forward, and how do you see them joining the marketplace proposition in the coming years?
So if you look at Google, it's one of the biggest drivers of e-commerce up until recently. Now, a lot of people start their search on marketplaces, but also on Google, you have Google Shopping, and Google Shopping is turning into a marketplace. So if you look at the US, Canada, and France, you already have the checkout. So you pay at Google and the order goes directly into your systems. So that's a big shift, especially if you have a small e-commerce store that relies on traffic from Google. So if you search for a product on Google, you already see Google Shopping, and then in search results, you see a lot of marketplaces. So people are bound to go through these settings instead of having organic results with your web shop. So if you solely rely on Google, that is slowly going to transfer into transactional thing, so they will never see your web shop again. Same goes for another big traffic driver, which is Instagram. TikTok will do the same. They're driving a lot of traffic to your e-commerce store, and they are turning into marketplaces essentially, because they're grabbing transaction. And we see the same thing with comparison site turning into marketplace as well. So it's an enormous shift coming in the next months, years to come. So you have to be ready to be able to ship directly to the end consumer and make sure you can connect to all these channels.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at and then shifting a little bit back to Google and how they've already entered the hotels and flights market. Like when I look at it, I see a clear difference between the two worlds where instead of just being intermediary, like they are for example, for flights, they're moving really to a marketplace model where you do the bidding. Do you expect this to hold true also in light of the European Union and the Federal Trade Commission in the US, hammering down on Google to split things up? Do you think they will be successful in this field?
I think that's the only reason why they haven't rolled it out yet in Europe, because they had so many fines because of their monopoly position that they're probably a bit afraid as soon as they roll this out, they're gonna get a lot of heat from all the retailers and competitors as well. While Amazon is doing exactly the same thing. So Amazon is basically a huge search engine, but only focused on products. Of course, they just got a lawsuit again for selling their own products and competing with their sellers, but it's a different story. So it's going to be hard for Google to actually push through, especially in Europe, but they are doing it already in the US and Canada. Not that much traction yet, but I guess everything click-based will go into transaction-based, so it's a matter of time.
Yeah, and I think they're doing the same trick that they did years ago with the shopping model, and in general, they're offering it now for a freemium model where you can organically be part of the shopping experience. But I'm curious to when then
once you're hooked, you're gonna pay.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds a lot like a drug dealer scheme here, but definitely. So one of the fun stories here to share is that about 4 years ago, I had two of my colleagues at the Dept Festival talk about in Google We Trust, predicting. I mean, it's not really a prediction; it's just reading the facts that we're moving in this direction. In my opinion, it took them a long time to start, influencing market, and I think you're spot on for the reason they don't want to, be in the picture of the Trade Commission and the European Union too much in that sense.
Yeah, so they just slowly ease it in with
exactly.
People get used to it, and they're going to mix it up with the clicks, and then later on, it's just going to be there.
Exactly. So and then again, this kind of leans towards the following topic I have here. So you have all these big marketplaces, like and let's assume for a second Google is also a marketplace and Instagram is. How do you look at the landscape, and especially the people watching our stream today? They might have Google Shopping running well, but they haven't really edged into the marketplaces space yet. What would your thoughts be for them to get started with marketplaces? Would you say, okay, go and give ChannelEngine a call, then give Dept a call, and then start with Amazon, or would you more lean towards local heroes, like for example Bol here in the Netherlands?
It definitely depends on the size of your company and your focus. So if you only focus on the Netherlands, or if your logistics are only geared to the Netherlands, definitely look at bol.com. Or if you're in Germany or in France, look at the local heroes. Why? Because typically it's faster to onboard. Signing up for an account with Amazon can take time. It can take a few weeks to even a few months, depending on all the documentation they ask from you to know your customer profiling, but also the way they approach the content. So if you want to sell on a marketplace and you take a local hero like bol.com or Real in Germany or Lego in Poland, it's much easier to onboard, to test it out. The structure is better. It's easier. You get some more support from these marketplaces as well.
Exactly.
And the biggest advantage is it's easier to have customers find your products. Because if you put your products in Amazon, it's your own products, you have to get a float on top of the search results. And there's 600 million products on Amazon, as opposed to, I think, 20, 30 million products on, for instance, bol.com. So it's easier to get noticed there, optimize your campaigns. Then again, on the other hand, Amazon gives you a lot of tools to optimize and promote your products, as opposed to the local marketplaces. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but you don't have to choose. I would say start signing up with both. Make sure you go the path for Amazon, and also start with your local marketplace at the same time, because you can utilize the same stock levels, customer service, etc. So. Yeah.
Exactly, couldn't agree more. And on the service aspect, and that's one of the reasons I have a soft spot for Bol.com, for example. There's actually a person picking up the phone when you can't figure it out yourself. So when you start as your marketplace's journey, and you need support from the marketplace in this case, there's actually someone there. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges Amazon is facing right now with their onboarding and pushing into new countries. There's a lot of people that have questions because the process is a little bit more complex. But all you get is a ticket, and you get the same answer going back and forth a few times.
Yeah, there's a big difference between large sellers starting for the first time. Make sure you already get an account manager assigned. So if you already started, it's hard to get an account manager. If you're a large brand, it is possible to get an account manager, and definitely recommend it. We got connections to do so for these kind of issues. But technical issues, sometimes it helps if you shoot in a ticket. Do it 2 or 3 times and hope you get the right engineer to help you and knows what's going on.
Exactly.
But you just go for it.
Hey, and you kind of answered this question already. If you would have to make a choice, would you go Amazon or local hero? But you already said go with both. So I think this is a good moment to actually look at some questions coming in, because I think there's quite a few questions already. Let me cheat on my second screen here. So Jorrit is asking if we have advanced user content available for Amazon. So reading, video, and content, we definitely do. And we do these webinars a bit more often, also from our international teams. In the follow-up, we can share some of that content in post webinar. I also see a question coming in here. If 75% of the sales are coming in through marketplaces, in other words, there's diffusing of your brand values, your precision, and your findability. Is that an English word? I guess now it is. How do you prevent overspending on marketing to keep that brand image, etc., going? Do you have some thoughts on that, Jorrit?
Oh yeah, definitely. So a lot of people say, well, we're going to be dependent of the marketplace if we start selling on there. But most brands are already dependent on Google, for instance, to get a float there. So there are a lot more advertising opportunities on Amazon to promote your brand. You can build a brand store within Amazon and A+ content. So that's something you probably show in different Dept talks or webinars as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to showcase your product as well. And that's also why I recommend brands to start embracing Amazon and making sure you are in charge of the content. In terms of findability, there's one advantage on marketplaces is if you look at Google compared to a marketplace, in Google you can do AdWords, and that has no influence on your organic ranking. If you look at marketplaces, you can do PPC campaigns, and that has influence on your organic ranking. So if your sales velocity, the speed at which you sell your product, is increasing fast, you can stimulate that, and that has a positive influence on your organic ranking, which makes your product be found earlier in specific search results. And you can also stimulate that from other channels as well. I recently heard a lot of examples of cheap traffic coming from TikTok, driving traffic to Amazon, and then driving up the organic results. And afterwards, a lot of sales are being done.
Exactly. So there's a lot of quantitative and qualitative metrics that influence your rankings on marketplaces. So then, how do you prevent spending more money on your marketing ongoingly? I don't think you can completely prevent it, because it's a shift. So the market is also getting bigger, and as you saw in the numbers earlier,
more competition per category, more competition per category, more competition per keyword.
Exactly. But this has been going on with Google for years, right? It's nothing new. And I do believe that if we see that increase from 15 to about 22% of the market of retail being e-com, that's an increase of trillions and trillions of dollars. So even though you're spending more, there's also more opportunity in the market.
I actually read we're already there to 20% and over during COVID.
Yeah, exactly. And then and I see another question here. What are the top 3 countries where marketplaces are most applied, and how do those numbers that we shared compare to those countries? I think we'll get back to that in a little bit, more about the
China's
different
the
markets
biggest.
that we cover. Yeah, but I think US
Everyone.
is
China is huge in terms of marketplaces, but all other regions are gearing up. US is already there, so it's way past 50% has been sold on marketplaces. Europe is following suit. Southeast Asia is exploding in that sense. Middle East is catching up. So basically, on a global scale, this is happening.
Yeah, exactly. And if I remember my numbers correctly, I think in 2019, Amazon ended the year with a growth of $200 million per day of growth in revenue, which is not just focused in the US or Europe. The Middle East is really growing as well. And yeah, China is a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Everything is a marketplace there.
583,000 transactions per second during single day.
Yeah. It's crazy. But let's go back to the topics we had here, because one of the things is whether you make the choice to go left or right, you could do both with the right tooling and getting the right steps taken. And to quickly go through it for the people that are less familiar with this, so not the advanced users like Chair, for example, that asked the question earlier. You can classify tooling into about 4 different classes. And please note that the tooling usually covers more than one class, but it's easy to divide things up because we like to put everything in little buckets, right? So you have tools that do research, and anyone in search engine marketing will have a really easy time to understand these tools. They're basically like the good old keyword planner from Google, but the cool thing is that actually some of the marketplaces can have additional data on top of that. So for example, with Amazon, and like Jorrit mentioned, they give you the tools to actually see what's going on in a category with some benchmark data and sometimes even specific data for a category. And additional tools like Helium 10, for example, that are on the market to help you with that research, even give you a more deeper dive. And one of the things we do at Dept is take all that data together and then also monitor a category to see what's actually going on in real time. To really come up with an outside-in book, basically, but based on internal data of one of those marketplaces to build your business cases. So it's actually kind of cool what you can do on marketplaces, and it goes 1 or 2 steps further than what you're used to with search engine marketing. We also have advertising tooling, and that really speaks for itself. PPC campaigns management, content optimization, suggestions, stuff like that. And it's basically just running like your campaigns in Google, Bing, or Facebook. And my colleagues sometimes say, okay, it's like running your campaign in Google 5 years ago. So that's what you can expect on that side of the tooling suites. And then we have reporting, and this is one of the biggest headaches that you have when you're starting with marketplace, especially when you have a bit of a bigger company with a high request for insights. It is really hard to get unified data across multiple marketplaces, and even sometimes across different markets in the same marketplace. So how you create a holistic view is a bit of a challenge, and there's solutions to it. But it usually consists of taking off-the-shelf tooling, like what you see here on the left side. This is the ChannelEngine interface, actually showing you what's happening, in this case on ball.com, and combining the data with the other things you're doing on marketplaces. So if you look on the right side, this is part of our Dept internal suite, Factor A suite, where we created a C-level overview of what's going on with all the marketplaces together. So this is usually a bit of a custom challenge. And the last category here is products and sales. So what I mean when I talk about products and sales is tooling that connects your product information to the marketplace and vice versa. So also your order information should come back, right? If you have an order, regardless whether your fulfillment is through the marketplace or you do it yourself. So that information stream is arguably the most important thing you could do, because you want to optimize that information. So if you're familiar with Google Shopping, for example, where you optimize titles, order things, you want to be doing that all day long when you're talking about marketplace, and not just titles, but all the content you have. So this choice that you make here for tooling could make or break your marketplace venture. And I could probably be talking about an hour about this, but you basically build ChannelEngine to solve this. What would you say that you really need to excel and make the right choice on?
Your sound drops away. So if you still can hear me, what is essential if you sell a marketplace is that you do what you promise to do, which means stock levels need to be synchronized. So if you say it's in stock, it should be in stock. So we can connect to your backend systems. You have to ship in time, have to send back track trace information, etc., which is essential because one of the key performance indicators are your seller performance. And if you do that well, you don't have to be cheap on the marketplace, and you can still win the buy box. The other thing is making sure on all these different marketplaces that your product content is there in a unified and optimized way. If you have your product content in your own PIM system, you might have a categorization structure or a taxonomy that is different from the marketplace. So marketplace has a different category tree, but they also have different ways of setting up attributes like sizes, materials, colors, etc. And you want to be able to map that towards your own system without doing that manually or with Excel sheets and stuff like that. So that's an important part of the tooling you need. And the other one, we just spoke shortly about the buy box. If your seller performance is up there, you can optimize everything well. Then you need your prices optimized to make sure you win the buy box. So especially if you start retailing, so for brands that don't use repricing that much unless it's overstock. But for retailers, it's essential if there are other sellers to be on top of it, especially if you have 30,000, 100,000 products. You have to be able to do it automatically. As soon as a competitor runs out of stock, you want to go up in price to make sure you have maximum yield. If Amazon dives below the price, maybe you want to wait until they don't have stock anymore. And otherwise, you want to optimize your price to make sure you win the buy box. Because around 70 to 80% of the people visiting a product detail page clicks on the buy box without looking any further. So those are essential parts. And then there's a lot of other things you can do in our tooling is things like currency conversion ratio if you want to do cross-border sales. So you might have your products in pounds or in dollars or in euros, and you want to be able to transfer it into Danish krone or other currencies. You want to be able to automatically translate your product information and review it and sell it, virtual product bundles, and a lot of other features you would need to be able to sell successfully on the marketplace.
Yeah, exactly. And how would you, and it's I put a little overview on the screen right here, because everything you just described you have to do for like a gazillion marketplaces. So how do you see tooling enabling you to do that? And that, like you said, okay, different currencies is one thing, but does ChannelEngine, for example, take into account what requirements are there per marketplace and offload that responsibility from your side, or is that still something you have to manage yourself?
No, we definitely take over the requirements, especially in terms of content and stuff like that. Can all be mapped within ChannelEngine, so you don't have to log in all these different seller portals, which are completely different. ChannelEngine keeps track of your stock levels, so you can utilize the same stock and sell it on all these different marketplaces. As soon as you sell something on Amazon, we take it off of Auto, etc. So it is essential to have stock, even if you have or a tool like this, even if you have two channels. And if you go cross-border, it's getting more complex because you might want to have multiple fulfillment centra, etc. We can dive into that for a whole topic of an hour, I think.
Yeah.
But it is smart to utilize the fulfillment center of the channels in combination with your own third-party logistics providers or your own warehouses. And that way you can optimize your sales in different geographical areas.
Fair enough. And looking at the time, I think we promised one more topic for today, and that's how to start selling on marketplace and before the calendar starts 21. So let's dive into that. But I saw a question coming in. The big box. What do you mean by that? I think you said buy box, and you can explain, of course, what that means.
Yeah. So if you sell a product that others sell as well, for instance, a phone or a keyboard, where there might be 30 sellers on a marketplace. You want a product detail page. and there's one big button, buy now. And then you can always look at other sellers as well. One might be cheaper, the other one might ship faster. And Amazon's algorithms determine who gets the buy box. And that's always a combination of the best seller performance in combination with a good price. So it doesn't have to be the cheapest, but your seller performance needs to be well, and your price needs to be optimized. And that's why you need a good repricer next to a good operational software to make sure your seller performance is high and you get the right price for your buy box.
Yeah, actually, and depending on the marketplace, of course, there's different variables. So even though they all kind of work similarly, so Amazon works in the same way that Bol.com does, but there's slightly different weights to certain things, like your service level might be weighted more on Bol than on Amazon, or vice versa.
So and the small marketplaces that sell themselves as well. Just if they have it in stock, they have the buy box determined as a price.
Exactly. But let's quickly jump back to seller marketplaces before the calendar shows 2021, because that's what we promised. So looking at marketplace, we usually talk about 3 horizons that you look for when you first start selling. And the first horizon is quite simple. Use a marketplace as a channel, regardless whether you're a vendor or a seller. You want to start and look at Google Shop, like at marketplaces, like you look at Google Shopping or at any other retail partner you might have. So that's the first stage. Then the second and the third stage are more towards not doing only pull marketing, but more going towards push marketing. So leverage the data that they have, and I promise not to talk about it, but I have to mention it. So leverage the data that Amazon, for example, shares, where you can actually buy that data like you do with other display campaigns, but you can buy it specifically for what's going on the marketplace and start pushing people towards your products and brands as well. And the last level is actually having it as a completely separate store with a dedicated team. But let's look at the first horizon together. Because if you want to go live in all those different local marketplaces, you could be drowning yourself quite quickly. And I mean, we've been talking about it in ChannelEngine. Definitely helps people make up for some lost time there. But one of the biggest mistakes I made personally is I completely forgot to talk to our customer service team when we started with marketplaces. The first time I did it. Rookie mistake, but we went live. I was happy. First sale coming in, high fives going all around. And then about 3 days later, I was like, hey, maybe we should check if there's any questions coming in from people. So a lesson learned there, because you cannot just slap a process onto your colleagues and ask them, okay, go fix my problem. So that's my biggest learning.
So you did customer service for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I had to help them out, of course, but they were phenomenal in fixing my mistake. But in your experience, what's the biggest hurdle companies have to take when they get started with marketplaces?
The biggest hurdle is making sure content is complete. So mostly they have content with title, description, etc. But marketplace always recommend or require different attributes that are there for material size, processor speed, battery duration, stuff like that. Make sure you have that. Unless you are a retailer and the products are already on a marketplace, in that case, it's very easy to sell because all you need is EIN code, stock levels, and pricing, and then instantly you can hook on and start selling. Other big hurdle is creating seller accounts. Sounds stupid, but it takes time. Create an account, get validated, etc. Especially for Amazon, eBay might take quite some time. And if you start selling cross-border, make sure you start registering for VAT numbers if you don't have it already. Especially during COVID, it can take up to, for Spain, even 9 months, I've noticed, and some countries 2-3 months, as opposed to 2 weeks before that. So yeah, make sure you do that as soon as possible if you start. But if you want,
do you think it's realistic for people to want to start and have what we see on the screen right now, all these different channels connected within a couple of months, or would your recommendation be start it easy, but set all the processes start all the processes?
Start creating all the accounts. Then start with one marketplace. Make sure all your processes are running smoothly. Make sure that all the shipments go back and forth. Stock levels are optimized, and as soon as it's done, it's quite easy to add new marketplaces as well, because the process is the same way, and it's connecting into your own backend systems.
Exactly.
But start with the process of signing up, because it can take some time with administration.
Yeah, so your most important message here is keep in mind that not all marketplaces are created equal and other processes can take a while. So start with the registration now, and then you have that set in place when you want to get started, right?
Correct.
So to make things concrete, and I hope a lot of the people watching are almost finished with their lunch sandwich, so we can start going towards a conclusion here. But there's 3 points that you need to have really fixed in place, other than the administrational stuff, that we would like to give to you to share your thoughts about. Because one is customer service, because else you'll end up like me and looking like a fool in front of your colleagues when you do this for the first time. Second one is fulfillment. If you can manage have your fulfillment done by the marketplace, like fulfillment by Bol or fulfillment by Amazon, go for it. It's a really great way to get started, and there's a lot of upsides to doing that and getting started, especially because it influences your rankings.
I always recommend to do hybrid as well. So you have your own warehouse and the warehouse of Amazon. So if Amazon suddenly stops accepting your inbound shipments, which happened during COVID, then you're independent and you can still sell and ship from your own warehouse. And in ChannelEngine, we can actually switch between FBA and your own warehouse, automatically prioritizing FBA. Same goes for the other channel fulfillments.
Good addition, thanks. And lastly is, of course, getting your product feed from A to B. So if you have that all in place, Jorrit and myself were talking about if you're already on e-commerce and you're already doing a shopping campaign, for example, you have all that set up. So your e-commerce business is running. We were talking to each other. Could you actually be selling on a marketplace within 1 day? And remember the
if you have a seller account, yes, you can.
Exactly. So that's what we were talking about, and they were like, let's put our money where our mouth is. Through this way, we want to pick up that challenge and say, if you feel that you have all these things in place, but you're just missing the final push to actually go live, we want to make you the promise that the first 2 people that are getting this code scanned and requesting a free consult, as we call on the website, we'll get you online in a day. Of course, with the prerequisitions that we just talked about. But we want to pick up that challenge because I think it will be really cool to get you selling before the end of the year, and we would like to help you with that. Please note, not all marketplaces do offer these short lead times. So, for example, Amazon is not accepting all customers. Zalando is going to take a while. But if the prerequisites are there, let's go for it. I would really like to pick up that challenge.
Sure.
And that kind of concludes the past almost 40 minutes of chatting between us. And I see that there's some more questions. Let me double check here. So as Amazon vendor, what is the card that you have to play to improve your revenue? Do you want to take a crack at that, Jorrit?
What is the card you have to play to improve your revenue if you're already selling, right?
Yeah, selling as a vendor, yes.
Selling as a vendor. Yeah, so yeah. If you're selling as a vendor, I always recommend to start selling hybrid, which means you can also start a seller account next to your vendor account. But typically, Amazon only purchases a certain set of your products, not a whole complete range. Even if it's spare parts or stuff like that, start there. And as soon as you have that in place, you can scale up later on. Also, when Amazon doesn't buy all your stock or doesn't send you the purchase orders during a COVID situation or other crises, you can slowly scale up. But for both accounts, vendor as well as seller, make sure your content is optimized and you do very good and smart campaigns, not only on Amazon but also off Amazon from different traffic channels. So I mentioned TikTok as well, but there are comparison sites that can drive traffic towards your landing page on Amazon, which boosts your sales velocity and also boosts your organic ranking. Make sure your keywords are optimized, do your research, etc. Make sure you are found on that search engine on the marketplace. And that counts for every marketplace, not only Amazon.
Exactly, and I don't think it's just a vendor-specific question. I mean, going hybrid is one of the biggest questions we have had over the past few months. because you see vendor sales slowing down through the platforms. So go hybrid and invest some time and money into optimizing your content, and then drive traffic to the store, whether it's seller or whether it's vendor.
It makes you more independent of these platforms as well, because you can drive traffic whenever you want, and you can make sure for a product launch that you have your products in stock in time, and then you can do your product launch and fully independent of the purchase orders of Amazon.
Exactly. You could even go double hybrid, where you would have a vendor and a seller with fulfillment through the marketplace, and you could fulfill yourself. That will be the ideal setup.
Yeah.
And I see another question coming in here. What do you think is the most interesting upcoming country in Europe from a marketplace's perspective? That's a very good question.
Most interesting upcoming, I would say Sweden. The volume isn't there yet, but Amazon is just launched there, and there's not many competitors on these platforms. So you've got CDON, Alens, Found, and Amazon. That's an interesting one, and the other one is Allegro. Allegro is huge, 4 or 5 times bigger than bol.com. It's a bit more complex because it used to be a classified site and turned into a marketplace. So the tools aren't that sophisticated as bol, but there's a lot of opportunity if you do it well.
Yeah, and for the people that aren't familiar with it, what markets does Allegro serve?
Sorry?
What markets does Allegro serve for the people that aren't familiar with the name?
Mostly Poland. It's,
yeah, Poland is one of the hidden gems in marketplaces land at the moment.
Yeah.
So I think if there's no more questions, and I'm also looking at the behind the screen staff, but I don't think there's any more questions coming in. I would very much like to thank you for your time, Jorrit. I know it's a crazy busy time for you as well, and I loved having you on. And I hope everyone's happy with the answers we could provide, and are going to take us up on our challenge.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.